that to my awesome panel of experts and Jackson family friends. Brian Oxman, former Jackson family attorney. Sharon Liko, family law and criminal defense attorney. Stacey Honowitz, Florida prosecutor. Furpo Carr, former Jackson spokesperson and Jackson family friend. And Jim Murray, attorney and chief correspondent for Inside Edition. Jim, you were in court for part of the day yesterday. Now, today, we suddenly hear this stunning revelation about Joe Jackson. How do we connect the dots, and do they connect back to Debbie Rowe?
It's possible, but you've really got to be careful in putting any stipulation on what happened. Joe Jackson and Catherine Jackson are married. They've been married for a long time. They've also lived separately for a long time. Joe Jackson signed a consent decree, a consent order basically admitting that he allows Catherine, he supports Catherine in being the sole guardian of these children. By the way, Paris and Prince also signed a consent saying that they wanted their grandmother to be their guardian. However, there was no limitation, there was no barring of Joe from seeing his grandchildren. He's simply acknowledging that Catherine will be the one to make all of the decisions. She will be the one to raise them. I know that Debbie Rowe stated publicly to a reporter a couple weeks ago that was her only real concern. And if this is enough to satisfy both parties, then good for the kids.
And why? Well, in 1993, Michael Jackson told Oprah that his father, Joe, beat him. We just heard Joe admit to whipping Michael. And then there's this notoriously bizarre behavior on the red carpet at the BET Awards just 3 days after Michael Jackson's sudden death. Listen.
But I want to make this statement. This is a real good statement here. Marshall and I we own the record company called
Ranch Records. Right. Okay, distributed by Blu-ray technology. Yeah. And that's his next step.
Brian Oxman, do you think this whole Joe Jackson stay away issue would have come up had he not done that? Does it predate that? Does it predate to Debbie Rowe's concern about Joe Jackson? But he didn't do himself any favors with that.
I think it's all overblown, Jane. I think that what you have is Debbie Rowe has been very concerned about how the kids get raised and how she's going to be introduced to them. And she wants Catherine Jackson. And to read anything further into this is a mistake. I don't think that there's animosity there with Joe Jackson. I don't think that Debbie Rowe has ever felt that. So I think we're reading a little bit too much into this.
So in other words, Furpo Carr, we shouldn't say that Joe Jackson is banned from Havenhurst, the Encino home. He has said, I've had a close family relationship with these grandchildren since their birth. I do visit the family residence from time to time and will continue to do so. However, I will not be involved in raising the children, end quote. Why issue that statement unless he was pressured to do so by somebody who said, hey, that's the terms of the deal if we want to make a deal to have custody?
As Catherine Jackson's attorney said, Joe Jackson voluntarily signed a consent decree, if you will. All he did was endorse what he's already doing. He lives most of the time in Las Vegas, and he visits Encino occasionally. That's what he will continue to do. As Brian mentioned, there's no big deal here. Nothing has changed. He will continue doing what he has always done.
All right. I got to get Sharon Liko's insight into this, because you always have the controversial spin, Sharon. Do you buy it? Do you buy that this was just, oh, we're going to all make nice and I'm going to say this. It doesn't really matter because I'm already doing that. I already live in Las Vegas and it's no big whoop. Or is it something that Debbie Rowe said, I need to have in order to walk away?
I think that Joe Jackson's behavior is a concern for Debbie Rowe. It's a concern for his, Mr. Jackson's wife, and it may be a concern for other people. I mean, Jackson's a loose cannon, and who knows what he's going to say, when and where. I think the concern is that his presence may be emotionally abusive to the kids, because he's going to say something outlandish about their father or their mother, and they're going to be mortified. They've got to live with it on TV. So
well,
he's not
going to go by that.
Well, he's not. Well, hold on, Tiger. Tiger, hey, hang on there. Take some time out.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I've heard Furpo referred to a lot of things, but Tiger really takes it.
You like that, yeah?
I like that.
Hey, I gotta say this. Speaking of inappropriate humor, it was only a matter of time before gallows humor surfaced in this case. A very snarky comment coming from none other than comedian Joan Rivers. Joan was recently roasted by fellow showbiz types, so when TMZ caught up with her, they asked her who she would like to roast. You gotta hear this one.
I'd love to roast Brooke Shields, who is Michael's dearest friend. Haven't seen him since 1993.
Yeah, so you don't really think that was like really an honest statement from her, huh?
Oh, darling, grow up.
Just not too genuine.
It's called FaceTime.
Brooke Shields, seen here in AEG's footage of Michael Jackson's memorial, spoke warmly and humorously of her relationship with Jackson over the years. You see her there crying. Now, Joan Rivers claims Brooke hadn't seen Michael since 1993, but as TMZ points out, Joan hadn't seen him since 1991. Jim Moray, is it too soon to be joking about this, or does the behavior, let's say, of Joe Jackson promoting his record company 3 days after his son died open the door for this kind of nonsense?
I think Joe Jackson's statements and Joan Rivers are totally separate. I think that attacking Brooke Shields was so inappropriate. Brooke Shields wasn't saying she saw Michael Jackson every day. She was trying to point out to people why she and Michael Jackson were friends. They were both kids in the limelight, under the microscope. They understood each other. They didn't have to pretend around each other. I thought what she said was so heartfelt and humanized Michael Jackson in a way that we hadn't heard before. And frankly, it gave a great sense of empathy to both of them. And look, you're going to have gallows humor no matter what, but Joe Jackson's comments were strange after his son's death to promote his record label, but I think Joan Rivers stepped a bit over the line.
Now, Stacey Honowitz, let's talk about this bizarre development of lawyers for Dr. Arnie Klein jumping up in court and saying they want a role. He wants a role, even though he's not acknowledging being the father. In the raising of the two older kids. He didn't mention blankets. Do you find that odd? What do you make of this bizarre maneuver that was shot down by the judge?
I think I make of it what everybody makes of it, that obviously there's more of an involvement that he wants to admit to. First of all, the judge said he had absolutely no standing. There hasn't been a paternity test. He's not alleging that he's the father. He's saying, I was instrumental. I know what the kids are all about. I want to be instrumental in their lives. But certainly, no judge in the world is just going to let this person come in. If he wants to be present in their lives, if he has more of an involvement with those kids, then he has to be willing to maybe take a paternity test to determine if he is the biological father, and then they do it in front of a family court judge to determine what kind of role he would have to play. But at this juncture, he has no standing to do anything.
All right, well, thank you, fantastic panel, for weighing in. Of course, it's not just Michael Jackson. Millions of people across America are grappling with addiction. And guess what? I'm one of them. In my new book, I reveal details of my own personal battle with alcoholism and how I finally got sober more than 14 years ago. It's a recovery memoir due out this fall. You can pre-order your copy right now. Just click on CNN.com/Jane and look for the pre-order section. This book is also about how everything, and I mean every single thing, changed in my life after I got sober, including my relationships. And, oh boy, a whole bunch of new addictions like sugar popped up. I'm going to tell you how I kicked that one. There's more than a few shockers in this book, and it could help you with your issues or with somebody you love. Speaking of addictive substances, cops say the son of Michael Douglas was busted with half a pound of meth. He is not the first celebrity child to be busted with drugs, and I doubt he'll be the last. Will these kids ever learn their lesson, or are they getting a free pass and no homecoming party for Michael Vick? Instead of partying up, Vick meeting with the Humane Society and talking to high school kids? Is this the start of a new image? Give me a holler, 1-877-JVM says.